before that, I was there for many years. I knew the girls when they were quite small. But I've watched them move from Christchurch because of the earthquakes. I think they were quite settled there, but they had to move to Sydney and establish themselves here. And I think they've been quite remarkable how they've done it with so much courage, so much love, so much enthusiasm. And after all their tireless efforts, they've created a beautiful home, not just for themselves, because they really want this home to be a place a spiritual centre for this area of Sydney. So later on tonight, we're going to hear from Sister Indu, and she will tell us a little bit of their story. But we're all here, and I think we can't underestimate that when we hold a lot of love and goodwill in our hearts, it's like a blessing. Is that true? We've all come here with a lot of love and goodwill to bless this place and fill it with powerful vibrations. And Sister Indu asked me to talk a little bit about peace. Peace tonight. We have a gallery over here as well. And, you know, I often think we live in an incredible world, don't we? If you look at man has conquered everything today. You know, we've conquered space. We've conquered the oceans. We can go to the depths of the oceans. We've conquered the highest peaks. We've even conquered this body. We can cure so many diseases and replace all parts of the body, I think, except the brain. I don't think we can do that. We've even conquered time and distance with communication and travel. But there's one frontier that we haven't conquered, and that's the mind. It's amazing that human beings have almost everything today except for peace of mind. Would you agree? And it seems that peace of mind is one of the most elusive things in this world. And yet, I'd say it's the richest of all treasures. Because spiritually, peace is not just feeling a bit relaxed or a bit calm. Peace is our intrinsic nature. It's who I am. And really, when we step away from our truth and step away from the fundamentals of life, we all know what happens to our mind. We can experience so much internal upheaval. And for peace of mind, we have to live in self-respect and respect others. For peace of mind, we have to live in our truth according to our truth and our values. For peace of mind, in my experience, it's essential to carry goodwill for others. And for peace of mind, the seed of it is a relationship with the ocean of peace. And when I really start to put all the ingredients together, no matter how difficult this world is, how challenging this world is, I think it's possible to have peace of mind. So I'm going to ask, is it easy to find peace of mind? No one's responding much. Who thinks it's easy? Can I ask? 1.5. It's true. It's true. You know, I saw a video a little while ago, and it was of a man who had a zip around his head. And a big hand came and unzipped his head and opened his skull like a suitcase. And we looked inside his head, and there was hundreds of little people running around. Hundreds of little people. Some talking, some arguing, some fighting. And I thought it's a really good metaphor for our minds today. You know, we have so many stories in our mind, so many feelings, so many hurts, so much unresolved stuff, you know? And sometimes you're fine, but sometimes when you start to think, it bubbles up into your mind and the peacelessness returns. And we are all sitting here so calmly and quietly, and yet in the privacy of our own minds, all of us are creating thousands of thoughts. It's like each little mind is like a thought factory. And you know this thought factory, it never stops. Even when you sleep, it's still working. And I've had the image in my mind many times. Just imagine if your thoughts had colours. Each time you thought, you sprayed colours into the atmosphere. You're all watching me. And just imagine if you could watch my thoughts. And if I have loving, peaceful thoughts, beautiful, soft, gentle colours, pink, blue, mauve, just gently waft into the atmosphere. But if I had a negative thought, an angry thought, just like a big, jagged, black blob just goes, imagine if everyone could see your thoughts. How attentive would you be to your thinking? Actually, they can't see them, but they can feel your thoughts. Everyone can feel your thoughts, actually. And I think when we begin to realize, because on the spiritual path, we begin to understand a lot more and take responsibility for our thoughts. And I often mention that whenever you communicate with another person, what is life? What is family? It's communication. It's connection. You communicate on 3 different levels. What you say, like me at the moment, I'm speaking. It's your face. As soon as you see a face, we get some messages and the vibrations, the feelings. And do you know that when you connect with another person, 90% of the effect is the non-verbal, is your face and your vibrations. And you know, I think one of the biggest illusions in life is that your thoughts are private. No one knows your thoughts. I don't believe that. Because if sometimes in the privacy of my mind I have negative thoughts, critical thoughts, I remember people's past, and then I wonder, why don't people cooperate with me? Why don't people love me? Why don't people like me? Because they feel my thoughts. They feel my peaceless mind. And it's like pushing people away. They won't come close. And really a spiritual person understands that the more I create a peaceful, clean, pure state of mind, I learn the art of quality thinking. Not only do I just relax and calm down, people feel safe with me. People feel comfortable with me. People will feel close to me. Because my thoughts are like a field that makes people feel close or makes people feel distant. And you know, I often think, or recently, that my mind is a sacred place. And this mind is the only place that you potentially have full control over in your life. And sometimes I think of the mind like a beautiful crystal clear bowl of water, and in its original state it's so still, so calm, so peaceful. But there's gateways into your mind, into your sacred space, your ears. So you hear something from somebody and you let it through your ears into your mind, and what happens? Think, 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 think. How can they say that? You know, the mind. So it begins to drive my thinking. I see people. I see the way they behave. I don't like it. So I let that behavior enter my eyes and drive my thinking. Or sometimes my memories, they bubble up into my mind. You know how you're going along in the day, everything's fine, and you remember something, instantly your mood changes and your thoughts change. So what is happening? Life is driving my thinking. We often blame the world, but I'm allowing the world to drive my thinking and make me feel peaceless. What is meditation? Meditation is actually sitting down and creating the thoughts I want. It's like taking my spiritual power back. Rather than this happened, think, think, think. That happened, think, think, think. You say something, think, think, think. I'm just reacting. I'm actually taking back control of my mind. And the more I practice meditation, the more I create the thoughts I want, I create the feelings that I want. And how to create a peaceful state of mind. I think it's probably the most important thing in life because it's intrinsic to a good life. You know, I gave a meditation course to a billionaire once in this country. And you know what he said to me? He said that I've been totally successful out there and a total failure in here. And I said, what do you mean? He said, well, I've made lots of money out there. But he said, I'm unhappy and peaceless inside. And I think that's common in this world, isn't it? And that's where I think the first step towards the journey of inner peace is to take responsibility for my thinking and my feeling. And you know, this mind is a wonder. Some people say that in a waking day, if you Google it, you'll find this, the mind creates around 50 to 70,000 thoughts in a waking day. Now, I often quote that, but I have no idea how they counted those thoughts. Others say that you can, think, you can speak about 500 words a minute, but you can speak about 125 words a minute, but you think about 500. You know how your mind does many jobs? You know how when you're talking to somebody, how many things is your mind doing at that time? And you know, in psychology, they say your mind is aware on 7 different levels at any given moment. So my mind is the center of my life. My whole life lands in my mind. My thoughts, my feelings, my memories, everything. How important is it to care for my mind, care for my thinking? And one question I always think is important to ask, who gives me sorrow? Who gives me sorrow? Me. Because someone says something that hurts me. What they said, was it what they said that hurt me, or was it my reaction to what they said that hurt me? We know it's my reaction. So who hurts me? Me. You know, if I have the courage to take responsibility that my thoughts are my creation, people will behave badly. People will be rude. We will be faced with difficult situations, but I choose how I respond. A spiritual person will decide that I'm not going to let you or this situation drive my thinking and create peacelessness. So firstly, the first step to peace is have the courage and the honesty to say each thought is my creation. If I want peace, I can't keep blaming people, situations, and everything else in life. And you know, spiritually, blame is the ultimate ignorance. Because when I blame, it's like saying, when you change my life or get better. Will people change? Will they change? Will they? I don't think so. So I've got to take responsibility. And as all of us know, the second step to inner peace is to know and experience who I am. All of us in this room, we know who we are. And yet, the intrinsic nature of the self is peace. But when I forget who I am, and I often mention this too, and I think I'm a temporary body. Many of us believe I'm a soul, but I'm still thinking according to my identity. And you know, the greatest influence on my thinking is my sense of self, my sense of identity. And, you know, sometimes I've seen people, they practice positive thinking, but they don't really change, because the seed which influences your thinking is how I see myself. And when I see myself as a body, it has two children that make my mind totally peaceless. Firstly, ego, the ego of this, who I am, all the labels of this body. I see myself as a whole set of temporary labels, and this will make me peaceless. And secondly, lack of self-respect. So the ego of superiority, I think I'm better than others, and this has a whole lot of feelings, the ego of inferiority. But meditation, the second step towards peace, is to sow the seeds so deep in my mind. I am a peaceful soul. I began this meditation in London. I was working in London. Actually, I worked at Imperial College. I had a job in the centre of London. And you know, when I began to practice this, I used to have to walk across Hyde Park. It took me 40 minutes. And you know, I used to walk as a soul. And I had such a deep experience. Even as you move, you can connect with your intrinsic state of peace. The aim of meditation actually is not to be peaceful. The aim of meditation is to know and realize who I am. And the automatic thing when I'm in the state of soul consciousness is you will feel your whole mind cool down. Such a sweet feeling. And this is where we have to go so deep into the awareness of who I am. And I was with a man just recently, he's a scientist. And he was telling me that from a scientific perspective, this body, see this body? It's 99.9% space. Now, I'm not a scientist, but technically, it's all little building blocks of molecules, right? And most of the molecule is space. So this body is like a hologram, really. The soul sits in the forehead, and life is acting through this body, doing action and receiving the fruit. If I do actions against my religion of peace, I feel very peaceless inside. If I do actions in the state of self-awareness of who I am, I can retain peace in the family, in the workplace, absolutely everywhere. So first, I have to take responsibility for my thinking. Secondly, I have to not just know, it's not enough to know, but go deep, deep, deep into who I am. And thirdly, I have to experience God's love. You know, my experience is that when you feel deep love, observe your mind. You just feel so calm and quiet. It's like you have everything you need. Have you noticed when you feel love, deep love, you don't need anything, you don't want anything, you're quite satisfied with what you have? Have you noticed that? And this is where really I would say that we search for true love. We invest my heart in relationships, but no human relationship is permanent. And so whether it's all, the things of life, time, change, conflict, death, the object of my love will go. Spirituality says to us to find a source of peace that's permanent, a source of peace that's always there. And this is where I become a soul, this little point, a tiny microscopic point, and I remember the eternal form of God, that point source of life energy, the Jyoti Bindu, the ocean of peace, the ocean of love. And it's not that it's just a belief or a religious devotion. God is a real living pulsating soul, a real soul. I'm a soul, I think you can see me, can't you? Acting through my body. God is a soul as conscious like me, but doesn't have a physical form. So that's where meditation is actually becoming bodiless like God in a sense, and resonating, seeing, touching, and allowing yourself to feel that power and watch your mind cool down. I can honestly tell you, Since I've been meditating, I think daily for 43 years, I've watched my mind. You know how you meditate and you relax, but as soon as you stop meditating, sometimes your mind goes back to the old way. The more I've practiced, the more your meditative mind enters your life. So when you go to work, when you're with the family, when you're in those difficult situations, rather than your mind going back to the old way of thinking and reacting, actually you can retain your peace. And this is why in the Brahma Kumaris we meditate with our eyes open, so we carry our peace into our life. Once I was in San Francisco, and I was the subject of an experiment at the University of California on meditation. They were studying the effects of meditation. And it's a proven thing that meditators calm their mind down, and it's good for your health, your physical well-being. There's so much scientific evidence for that. But you know, the scientist was interested. Okay, we can meditate, but when we go back to our family, and we all have difficult times in the family, when we go into the workplace with difficult people, what happens? Do I just revert to my old way, or do I carry my meditation into my life? So I was one of her guinea pigs, and I had to sit in a little room, and they attached electrodes to me all over, and I was in that room for 6 hours. And I had to meditate, and they recorded my brain waves. I had to sleep, and I'm usually quite good at that, so I had a little nap, and they recorded my brain waves. And then they gave me all these problems to do. I had to do mathematical problems, geometrical, and give them an answer in a certain time, putting pressure. And you know what they said to me? Those who meditate with their eyes open carry meditation into life. Because we don't want our spiritual life to disconnect from the rest of my life. And so, this relationship with God, just think, if I connect my mind to the one who's peaceful eternally, and I stop connecting my mind to bad behavior, difficult situations, because the principle of yoga is that whatever you think about will influence you. So if you think about the past, you will be peaceless. If you think about the problems in the family, you will be peaceless. But if you think about God, you will be more peaceful. And actually, it helps you get an assessment on how to tackle problems once you retain that sense of peace. So this relationship with God is absolutely at the core of a peaceful state of mind. And fourthly, I think we need to look after our conscience. You know, I often think my conscience is the vessel of truth sitting inside me. If you go against your truth, if you act or say or do something against who you are, your principles, how do you feel? It's sometimes the most horrible feeling, isn't it? Guilt, shame, and often these are the things that make us dislike who we are. That can create the most disturbed state of mind when I go against my conscience. And this is why spirituality is really getting the strength from my relationship with God to do actions according to my truth, to treat people well. If I treat people well, I will feel okay about who I am. If I don't treat them well, deep down, have you ever had the experience, if you yell or do something to someone you love, how do you feel deep down? At that time you're angry, and later you feel bad. You feel bad about your own behavior. You disapprove of your own behavior. So, for peace of mind, I need to take responsibility for who I am. Know who I am. Have a relationship with God. Do actions that keep my conscience peaceful. But one other thing is absolutely essential. I feel today it's essential to have good wishes and pure feelings for everybody. Is it easy? Yes. Took a little while. I can't tell you, most of the peacelessness that just makes my mind, I can't sleep, feel so disturbed, it will affect your physical health, comes from getting disturbed by other people. And I think my view these days is every human being in your family, your friends, your workplace has a set of strengths and a set of weaknesses. If I focus on the weakness, and I often feel that's what my ego will tell me to do. My ego will tell me to see what's wrong, see what's bad, focus on that. My mind will remain peaceless, and I think it's real. In my head, it's a reality. They're like this, and we speak about it, and we create peaceless atmospheres. If you focus on good, and I would say the key of a leader is just one thing: focus on the good of other people. And when you do, even in your family, even when the children, things are going through their hard times, maybe they're doing things what you feel is not appropriate, the more you focus on what's wrong, they will become worse and more distant. If you focus on what's good, the value of them, they get that sense of spiritual support from you. Because what I've seen is each time you generate negative thoughts, it creates a lot of negativity inside, you know. When you generate those positive thoughts about others, it's one of the most sustaining things for the self. And finally, I'm going to wind up because I've got a few other things to do. Finally, I think that in this world, a regular spiritual practice is very important. It's not just enough to believe. It's not just enough to have faith, because the world will still make me very peaceless. I need internal power. I need internal strength to maintain peace. And I really feel, you know, a lot of us, we all know, I speak to a lot of people. And a lot of people have said I was quite peaceful, but in the last few years, financial worries, family worries, my mind is getting more and more active and disturbed. And I'm sure you have many family members who are experiencing this. We are seeing a time in history where the human mind is spinning out of control, I would say. I feel each day to put a little structure in your life. Never ever miss waking up in the morning and meditating. Think it's possible? Does everyone? Get a good response to that question. I can't tell you, because if you wake up and put all these beautiful thoughts in your mind in the morning, it will give you strength to retain peace throughout the day. If you wake up in the morning and think, oh, this happened yesterday and I have to do this, and all the mind just starts spinning, you will spin all day and the peacelessness will only continue. And that's where, if I can say, it's like sometimes I have to look at my life. I have to give time for me. And it's not selfish. If you become more peaceful, I will guarantee that your peace will transmit to your family. And your peace will influence your friends and circle. You don't even have to say anything. All of us know that when you meet someone who's really calm and peaceful, you can feel it, can't you? You can feel their vibrations. It's very reassuring. And if I become peaceful, if I become an image of peace, I can't tell you, it will be like a blessing for yourself, a blessing for your family, and a blessing for everything happening around. And I feel the most important thing in life today is to give time to me. It's so important. I always feel these days we're living in a world of total uncertainty. Everything is unpredictable. And I can't rely on everything around me, but I can rely on my inner world. I have to take back the authority of my mind. by a regular spiritual practice. So I think we're going to remain peaceful, and I'm going to ask now Sister Indu if she would like to come and share a few thoughts. And I'm going to invite Ramesh here too, and Charu and Vista. It'd be nice if everyone could see all of you. And just come, please.